Giuliano Simeone, 23 years old. This surname always commands respect in football because Diego Simeone, that man who struck fear into opponents the moment he stepped onto the pitch, is an Atletico legend. But for all that rage, all that hunger to win, there was one thing he could never do: lift the World Cup. He tried 3 times: 1994, 1998, 2002. He even walked out as captain once, and 3 times he came back empty-handed. That trophy was a dream he chased his whole career, but could never quite touch. Now there's another Simeone on the pitch in an Argentina shirt, his son, Giuliano, and he plays for the team his father manages, Atletico, meaning every single day he steps out under his father Diego's shadow, he'd give his life to finish the job his father left undone. Think about it. The father tried 3 times, lost 3 times. What if the son succeeds on his very first attempt? If he does, I wonder what he'd say to Diego. Would he walk up and tease him about it? The next name carries the same pain. In fact, his father ran shoulder to shoulder with Simeone on the very same pitch, chasing that same trophy. Nico Paz, 21 years old. And here's the spine-chilling part. His father, Pablo Paz, played on the exact same pitch as the Diego Simeone we just talked about, in the same Argentina shirt. In 1998, they stood side by side. Both chased that trophy. Both came back empty-handed. Years later, now it's the sons on the stage. Nico has already gone far beyond his father. He was named the best midfielder in Serie A and carried tiny Como into the Champions League for the first time in their history. Real Madrid came knocking to bring this talent back. He's returning to the Bernabeu in the summer transfer window. And do you know who he passed the ball to in his first match for the national team? Messi. So the father couldn't reach that trophy, but the son might just belong to the generation that lifts it. Think about it. Pablo Paz left his dream unfinished, and Nico could complete it as a Bernabeu star. The next name is also following in his father's footsteps. This time the stage is Portugal. Francisco Conceicao, 23 years old. His father, Sergio Conceicao, was a star of Portugal's golden generation, the winger of that legendary Euro 2000 team. He went to the 2002 World Cup too, but do you know how it ended? Portugal were knocked out in the group stage, quietly eliminated. 24 years later, his son is on the pitch, Juventus's quick winger, Francisco, and this kid is well aware of his father's pain. He spoke to the microphones the other day and said this, word for word: "It's a source of pride for me that my father played in a World Cup, but I hope my story ends differently." He describes his father as his greatest advisor. This is the Hermel point. His father lived through heartbreak at that tournament, and the son is on the pitch to avoid tasting that same pain. Sergio couldn't get out of the group. Francisco wants to rise from the spot where his father fell. The next name takes us to the cold north, to Norway. But before we go to Norway, don't forget to subscribe. Alexander Sorloth, 30 years old. Atletico Madrid's tall, powerful striker, but his story stretches back 30 years to 1994 because his father, Goran Sorloth, went to the World Cup that year in a Norway shirt. He went, but he couldn't lift that trophy, and he too came back empty-handed. And here's a little secret for you. Goran wasn't alone at that tournament. There was another father in that 1994 Norway squad, and that father's son is also on this list. What's more, he's the biggest star of this video, the name I've saved for last. To find out his story, you'll have to watch this video all the way to the end. For now, just know this. 2 fathers in 1994 chased that trophy under the same Norway shirt, and both came back empty-handed. 30 years later, their sons are chasing the same dream. Alexander Sorloth, as a striker, could carry Norway a long way. But the next name brings yet another father from that mysterious 1994 squad. Kristian Thorstvedt, 26 years old. And here's the third father from that mysterious 1994 squad, Erling Thorstvedt. And he was no ordinary name. He was a goalkeeper who guarded Tottenham's net for years, recognized in England. Now stop and think about this incredible picture. At the 1994 World Cup, there were 3 fathers in that Norway squad: Sorloth, Thorstvedt, and the father of that star I've saved for last. All 3 wore the same shirt. All 3 couldn't lift that trophy. 32 years later, in 2026, the sons of these 3 fathers came together on the same pitch in the same Norway shirt. For the first time in history, a team fielded the sons of 3 former World Cup players in the same match. Kristian fights in midfield to finish the story his father left undone. Now we're crossing the sea toward America. Timothy Weah, 25 years old. And this might be the most painful story on the list, because his father wasn't an ordinary footballer. He was George Weah, the greatest African star of all time, the only African to win the Ballon d'Or, a legend voted the best in the world. He even later became the president of Liberia, but that magnificent career had one single gap. George Weah never made it to a World Cup in his entire life, because his country, Liberia, was always eliminated, never reached that stage. The best player in the world watched football's biggest stage only on television. Now his son Timothy is on the stage his father never set foot on. This young man, wearing the Juventus shirt, is living the dream his father never could, in a USA shirt. His father was the best in the world, but couldn't get there. The son is right there now. But can the USA actually win the World Cup? The next name is also the son of a legend. This time he comes from the Netherlands. Justin Kluivert, 26 years old, and this surname evokes a legend in Dutch football, Kluivert, because his father, Patrick Kluivert, that terrifying goalscorer of the 90s, Barcelona's star, was the man who scored the winning goal in a Champions League final at just 18 years old. Patrick went to the 1998 World Cup and carried the Netherlands to the semi-finals. But right there, one step from the trophy, they were knocked out by Brazil on penalties. That trophy slipped right through his fingertips, perhaps the biggest disappointment of his career. Now his son Justin is on the pitch. This quick, agile attacker wearing the Bournemouth shirt put on the Netherlands shirt at 18, just like his father, and now he's chasing the trophy his father missed by a single step. Patrick stopped at the semi-final. Justin wants to go one step further, and here we are, at the name I saved for last, the biggest star of the video. Erling Haaland, 25 years old, the most lethal striker on the planet, the man who shatters scoring records. But despite that entire career, until this summer, he had never played in a World Cup, because Norway had never once made it to that World Cup since he was born. And here's that mysterious third father too, Alf Inge Haaland. In 1994, he was in the same Norway squad as Sorloth and Thorstvedt, part of the team that couldn't lift the trophy. And here's the more interesting part. Fate did something so incredible. The 2026 World Cup is being played in the USA. That is, on the very soil where his father Alf Inge played in 1994. What's more, one of Norway's matches is at the place where the old stadium his father once played in was demolished and rebuilt. Erling is playing exactly in his father's footsteps, and in his very first match, he scored twice, carrying Norway into the round of 32 for the first time since 1998. Think about it. The father reached that stage, but couldn't lift the trophy. The son is now on the same soil, playing to finish the dream his father left undone. Maybe a Haaland will finally lift that trophy. So here they are, the 8 names carrying their father's unfinished dreams. Some in their father's shadow, some on the stage their father could never reach. So which of these 8 players do you think will achieve what his father couldn't? Which one do you think will lift that trophy? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now, and don't forget to subscribe for stories like these.